A deal on Dickens, who could resist? A stack of Austen, warmly kissed. Golden Age crime tales twist and turn, every page a treasure to learn. Books keep coming home with me, piles so tall they're all I see. Turn a page and sail the sea, reading always feels so free.
Hi, my name is Talia. Welcome to Talia Nerds Out. I have another book haul video for you, and this one is of more of a science fiction-y nature. Let me just pull them up here. And these are some of my more geeky ones. I've had these waiting for a while. By the way, my light behind my normal overhead light, it has gone out. It flickered out during the last video that I recorded on folklore. So I do not feel like getting up and changing light bulb. So that's going to remain dark back there. But yes, I have several kind of geeky books to show for book haul. First of all, these are, I was watching a couple of commentary channels about comics and some of the things that, some of the steps I've been taking with certain characters, specifically the way that the Mary Jane, Peter Parker relationship has consistently been flubbed ever since the, what's it called, One More Day storyline, one that I've never had really any desire to look into. All I had to hear was Mephisto was told that he could make it like Peter and Mary Jane's marriage never happened in order to save Aunt May's life. That was the whole concept. What Mephisto wanted with their marriage, it doesn't really make much sense to me, nor do I really care enough to watch it, or read it, excuse me. It seemed like a plot device because the writers didn't want to have a married Peter Parker and then have to deal with having that particular happy couple. But from what I understand, there is in existence a version of Peter Parker where he is allowed to have a normal happy family life, where then you work within that structure and having a superhero story. And apparently that is the ultimate Spider-Man. And I was interested, so I found some used copies. It's actually in really good shape for being used. Now, in this version, apparently Uncle Ben didn't die, and it's, like I said, it's an alternate universe. But what interested me was that they chose to have Peter navigate this while having a marriage with Mary Jane and 2 kids. And it sounds like they decided to keep it a functional marriage. So that interested me because Marvel execs have been very upfront and disdainful and downright rude to fans who have expressed that they would like to see this relationship return to the mainstream universe. They basically told people to get over it, and we don't care what you want. And that's what, if you want that, go to Ultimate. And they all but flips, the middle finger up at fans. So fans have been going to Ultimate for what I understand, because that's where they're going to get what they want. And I don't think that attitude worked out for them quite the way that they intended it to. But I look forward to reading this specific one. But because I did not want to hand Marvel any of my money, I decided to go and buy them used on eBay, where people were getting rid of their particular copies. Because why do I want to give money to an organization that so obviously despises its fans? Now, I remember reading this in high school, and this was a novelization, but not like as in like they had a movie and then they made a novelization. This was someone writing novels about Spider-Man. And this was back when the Mary Jane's Peter Parker relationship was still a canon marriage in the 616 universe. And that's, for people who aren't in the know, that is the main universe, the canon universe for Marvel, mainstream universe. And this author I'm familiar with from writing, I think, usually I've seen Diane Duane in Star Trek, not Star Wars. I'm pretty sure she does Star Trek, not Star Wars. I'm almost 100% sure she does Star Trek. And this is actually I want to say it's a trilogy omnibus. And I remember reading this in high school. So again, picked it up used because no, I'm not giving Marvel any of my money. And I look forward to rereading this. I have enjoyed Diane Duane's work in the past on, like I said, I believe it was Star Trek. Do I have hers over here? That's Durana Durgan there. Okay. I know I have Diane Duane's. I don't have any over here, though. Then also, another one that I remember reading in high school that I had to pick up used. It's another omnibus, and it's Mutant Empire, and it's X-Men. Honestly, the biggest scene that stuck... There's a couple scenes that stick out of my mind for this one. One drops your main characters in what gave the feeling of a concentration camp. And the reason why this ended up being besides the fact that it's a concentration camp, the character they dropped in the middle of that, one of the characters dropped in the middle of that was Wolverine, who had actually Logan had been alive during World War II. He had fought during World War II. This was something that brought back some really bad memories for him. And the other one who was dropped in there with him was Nightcrawler, who is a very good friend, but also happens to be German. And one of the... part of that scene has always stuck in my mind for years. And I look forward to rereading and see if it's as good as I remember it being. Because there's a couple scenes at the end that I really remember, too. The middle is a little bit more hazy. But I think it was one of those, like, what if Magneto was able to take over the world and remake it in the way that he thinks it should be, with mutants being in charge. And this is another one that only exists in novels. As far as I'm aware, this does not exist in a comic form any more than Diane Duane's Spider-Man omnibus. Okay, now moving away from the comic novels to Star Wars. This is, and if you're familiar with some of my Star Wars interests, you'll know that I am a big fan of Timothy Zahn, both of his work on Star Wars and his own original works. But this is another one of his Star Wars works. This is a more recent one. This is Scoundrels. Again, picked it up used because Disney owns Star Wars as well as Marvel, and Disney has been very outspoken about how it despises Star Wars fans too. And I despise Disney right back, so they're not getting any of my money. But I have been a long-time fan of Timothy Zahn's work, and this includes the timeline that didn't ever used to be called Legends timeline, that was just the timeline, because that's what existed before Disney went and I have choice words to say about that, but I won't. Sorry, I can't say this in a nice way, so I won't say it at all. Made a mess of Star Wars is the most tame way I can say it, although it could be much more colorful. Anyway, but people who watch my channel know how strongly I feel about the way Disney has handled Star Wars. But this is the timeline that I remember being in most Star Wars books that I would read when I was younger. Now this, like I said, is a newer Star Wars book, but I do believe it was released initially before Disney got its hands on Star Wars. And so, but I cannot be 100% sure of that. I'm pretty sure it is, though. And yeah, this is supposed to be a prequel. I'm not a huge fan of prequels, but I have huge trust in Timothy Zahn's work, and I have read this before. I don't like this one as much as I do the other ones that he wrote that focus on, I think it's The Choices of One and Allegiance. And those were focused on stormtroopers who suddenly realized, are we the baddies? So they decided to go and forge their own path because they still see the rebels as like being like these horrible people who rebelled against the Empire, but they see the Empire as like they're just kind of not doing what's right, so let's make our own path. It's neither way. So I enjoyed those stories more than I did Scoundrels, but it's Timothy Zahn, and this is a solid Timothy Zahn work. And in here as well, it has the novella Win or Lose All, which is also focused on Lando, and I want to say Han might show up in Win or Lose All as well. I know at least it's Lando. But, and the other Star Wars book, this is one, again, I never have read any other, I don't know if Steve Perry wrote any other Star Wars books, but this is Shadow of the Empire. From what I understand, this one doesn't usually get included in the Legends timeline. I am not quite sure about that. I know this has been around for a long time, because I remember reading this at least when I was in high school, if not before that point. Let's see, when it was released in 1996. So, yeah, if I read it when it came out, which I don't think I did, I would have been like 9. So, I don't think I read this right when it came out, though. So this is quite an old book, and this is supposed to be between the second Star Wars movie, and yes, I mean the second one as in like the second one that was released, not in, because I'm not including the prequels. First Star Wars, second Star Wars being Return of the Jedi, third Star Wars being I'm sorry, other way around. First Star Wars, which is Star Wars, now called A New Hope. Second Star Wars, which is Empire Strikes Back. Third Star Wars, Return of the Jedi. Yes, I know A New Hope has been a title for a long time, especially since the prequels came to be. I never really had heard it called A New Hope until the prequels came to be. I always had just heard it as Star Wars. Anywho, this is supposed to land between the second movie and the third movie. Yeah, not a whole lot to say about that without really ruining it. I do like how in the back they do the typical, text crawl like you have for the movies. And actually, I mean, there are a couple of interesting characters that are introduced by this book. None of them make it past this book, which is, honestly, I think Timothy Zahn is one of the few Star Wars authors I can think of who his work has really touched the whole of the EU for Star Wars, the extended universe, because so many other authors have used his characters, from using the Solo twins. And actually, did he create Anakin as well? I'm not completely sure if he wrote the youngest Solo child or if another author created that character. But he did create the Solo twins. Also, Mara Jade, which is a huge character that he created. I don't know how many other writers make use of Talon Card or of Thrawn, since, Thrawn is kind of a character that's confined to his 2 series that Zahn, who I believe is pretty much confined to the 2 series that Zahn has written for him. But the biggest, I want to say the biggest contributions that Zahn has had to the Star Wars universe has been Mara Jade and the Solo twins. There are probably other contributions that I can't immediately bring to mind, but he's one of the few authors I can immediately point to and say, this, you have really left your imprint on the extended universe. So even though there are some interesting characters that were created in this, I don't believe any of them move beyond this isolated book. And while there are other books that will refer back to books that occurred previously in timeline, I haven't seen a whole lot that pull characters, at least to the best of my knowledge, that pull characters created by other authors farther along in the timeline. The one difference, there might be one character I can think of from the Carillion trilogy that might have been pulled into other books, but no other authors had quite the influence that Zahn has had on the Star Wars extended universe. Now, other geekiness. I have never finished this series simply because when I first started reading it, I couldn't put it down and I was still working full time, and I was like, I can't continue with this series because I can't afford to stay up like near 24 hours because I can't put the book down, not when I work. So I never picked up the series again. And then I got sick and couldn't handle a lot of tense writing. So I went and I thoroughly ruined the series for myself, as in I went and I spoiled everything that's going to happen yet. I know all the story beats. So now I can go and experience the book for myself, but hoping that because I've spoiled what happens next, I will be able to diffuse the tension enough that I can still enjoy experiencing the characters do their things myself. Which I know that sounds like a very weird way to engage with a book or books, but I've been wanting to read the rest of this series for a while, and this really is the only way I feel like I can do so without sending myself into flare. So the first one is The Hunger Games, and I cried during this book during a specific part that all I'm going to say is it's fairly early in the games, and I'm not going to say much more than that. People who have read the books or even who've watched the movies will know what I'm talking about, most likely. But I sat, as soon as I picked this up, I did not put it down. And I remember reading it in bed until I was finished with it. So I stayed up all night because I was up all night because I was working night shift, and that was my night off. And I read it through the night while I was, I didn't do anything else. I didn't knit, didn't do anything. I just read the whole night. And then I went to bed instead of sleeping. I read that whole day. Or I read a good portion of what would have been my sleeping period for that day until I was able to finish the book. Now, I did get a little bit of sleep, I believe, but not nearly as much as I should have because I just could not put this book down. The next one, it's next, I think it's Catching Fire. Yeah, it's Catching Fire, which is next. So like I said, I had to ruin the plot for myself, but I know it's still not going to be quite the same as reading it for myself. But I'm hoping that by knowing what's coming next, I will at least be able to handle the book. And I've only watched the first movie because I didn't want to watch the movies before I read the books. And honestly, I don't really care about seeing the movies. I just want to finish the series. Or finish the original 3 in the series. I don't care about the new ones she's written either. And then there's Mockingjay, which is the final one in the original trilogy. So, this is a dystopia, and it is a YA dystopia. I would argue maybe the YA dystopia of that early 2000s era where you had just seems like a bunch of dystopian YAs pop up. This was the main one I can think of, although you also had Maze Runner and the other one that was made into a movie that I don't remember. I'm not a huge fan of dystopians, although maybe you might think otherwise because I just recently finished reading Fahrenheit 451. But this is the only other, and I have read and probably will reread at some point Animal Farm. But as a general rule, I don't prefer reading dystopian novels, but I've been wanting to finish this series for a while. And I got a good deal on it. And I love that it was in such good shape. And since I could get it in good shape, for all three being hardcovers, I decided to take advantage of it. A lot of people were having the first book paperback and then the other two hardcover. And it took a little bit of looking for me to find all three of them hardcover. And the final one I have to show, my mom was already shown on her channel quite a while ago. But this was written by someone I follow on YouTube. She has a channel. Her name is Jill Barup. Probably saying her name wrong. She has a channel that talks about stage fighting. So she'll do like stage sword fighting and stuff like that. And she'll go through movies and talk about different aspects of movie fights. And also the character building and story building through that. Well, at one point on her channel, she accidentally developed a story while talking on her YouTube videos. I really don't remember exactly how it started because I had watched her for a long time, was subscribed for a long time, and then I stopped watching for a bit. And during that period of time, she was creating these videos. And then she ended up releasing a book based off of some of the ideas that came up during those videos. I started reading it and I was like, oh my gosh, what fun. Mom will really enjoy this too. And Just Stab Me Now is, it says desperate mother, a dubious escort, and a deranged author who won't leave them alone. And everything in the reviews, and actually everything the author herself has said, makes a point of mentioning that this book is clean. Now, I have not personally read the book all the way through, but like I said, the reviews on Amazon, Goodreads, and the author's own statements point to this book being completely clean. So I am looking forward to this. And it's a concept I haven't seen a whole lot of writing. Now, you would think that because I slammed A Princess Bride, or not slammed, I have mentioned I dislike the book of The Princess Bride because of the author insert within the story. I don't know if it was because I didn't expect it or because it was just annoying the way that particular author chose to do it. But I went into this book knowing that the author is actually a part of the plot. The author character isn't intending to be a part of the plot. So, okay, I'm explaining this poorly. In The Princess Bride, I don't remember feeling like the narrator author was like a character in the story, but was just like an annoying narrator, like adding asides in a not terribly clever way. Like he would randomly start going off about his wife in a way that I don't remember really relating to anything. I just found it super annoying. But in this particular book, yes, Jill has written the book, but she's also created an author who is a character who is the author writing the story within her book. So Jill's writing a story about an author writing a story, and the author character is arguing with her characters who are not quite as willing to play ball with her, who kind of want to do their own thing and kind of wish that their author would go away or at least stop bothering them. So I think that's what was kind of, to me, a difference between the way The Princess Bride was written and the way this is written. This is supposed to be written with the idea that there is a unique character who is the author. That's not Jill herself, but that the author herself, the author is a character in the book. The author is a character in the book. I'm saying it poorly. I hope you get the idea of what I'm trying to say. You're not just having some nebulous person making unrelated statements. The character who is writing the story within a story is an actual character within Jill's story. There we go. And I just remember it, like what I read of it being fun. And I think Mom and I are looking to maybe start this in July or August. Maybe August, because July is Jane Austen July. I don't know. She and I will have to discuss it. But we do plan on engaging with this together, even if we don't read it aloud together, just sort of enjoy it around the same time. I think that's all for my geeky reads. Hope that you enjoyed that sort of sci-fi fantasy overview of book haul. Yeah, thank you very much for joining me. Hope that you have a very blessed day, and I will see you for the next video. God bless. Bye.
Books keep coming home with me, piles so tall they're all I see. Turn a page and sail the sea. Reading always feels so free.